The lights inside the studio don't just glow, they interrogate. They hang overhead like silent witnesses, humming softly, bleaching the color out of everything they touch. The stage of Jimmy Kimmel Live looks polished, harmless, almost playful. The city skyline backdrop sparkles in artificial midnight. The band is relaxed. The audience is buzzing. And then she walks out. Taylor Swift doesn't rush. She never rushes. Every step is measured, heels striking the floor with a rhythm that feels like a metronome ticking down to something inevitable. Her smile is flawless. Too flawless. The kind of smile that hides a storm. Before we go any further, before a single word is spoken, subscribe to Fame and Frame right now. Like this video. Comment your thoughts as we unfold this moment. Because what happened on this stage wasn't just a joke. It was strategy. And once you see it, you won't unsee it. She reaches the chair across from Jimmy Kimmel. He stands to greet her, grin wide. Cue cards stacked neatly in his hand like a shield he doesn't realize he'll need. The applause swells. It sounds celebratory. It feels like a countdown. Jimmy gestures for her to sit. The audience cheers louder, expecting charm, banter. Another lighthearted exchange between America's sweetheart and late night's seasoned ringmaster. The band plays a playful sting. Cameras glide in smooth arcs, hungry for a viral clip. But if you look closely, really closely, you see something else. Taylor's eyes don't wander. They calculate. Jimmy opens with the usual warmth. Compliments. Milestones. A reference to her record-breaking tour. The crowd eats it up. She nods, laughs at the right beats, tosses her hair with casual precision. Then he flips the card. There's a pause. A tiny one. Barely noticeable. But it's there. The question isn't brutal. Not on the surface. It's framed as humor. A callback to a rumor. A sly nod to her high-profile relationships. Territory late-night hosts love to tiptoe into with a wink and a smirk. The audience laughs before she does. That's when the temperature shifts. Not dramatically. Subtly. Like the air pressure before a thunderstorm. Taylor doesn't laugh immediately. Instead, she tilts her head, just slightly. The smile remains, but it tightens at the edges. Her fingers interlock in her lap. She leans forward an inch, reclaiming the physical space between them. Jimmy continues, thinking he's steering the ship. But he's already stepped onto her battlefield. There's history here, buried beneath punchlines and applause. Years of narratives written about her. Headlines dissecting her love life. Jokes packaged as harmless fun. And every time, she's been expected to laugh along. Tonight feels different. She finally speaks. Her voice is calm. Soft. Controlled. The audience leans in. She thanks him for the question. For the concern. For keeping track. It sounds gracious. But each word lands like a chess piece placed with intention. Jimmy chuckles, attempting to keep it buoyant. He adds another quip, doubling down lightly, unaware, or perhaps fully aware, that he's stepping further into delicate territory. Taylor's smile widens. It's dazzling. It's dangerous. She pivots. Instead of defending herself, she reframes the joke. She turns it into commentary about how women in the industry are often reduced to who they're dating, about how stories are shaped, about how narratives stick. The audience quiets. You can feel the silence pressing against the studio walls. Jimmy shifts in his chair. It's subtle, but it's there. He nods, laughs softly, attempts to interject. She doesn't interrupt him, but she doesn't yield either. This isn't anger. It's control. She speaks in smooth, unbroken sentences. Each one layered. Each one polished. The kind of precision that doesn't happen spontaneously. The kind that feels prepared. Strategic. The camera cuts to the crowd. Faces frozen between admiration and discomfort. A few nervous laughs ripple, unsure whether they're still in joke territory. Jimmy tries to pivot again. Compliments her songwriting. Mentions how she's always turned criticism into chart-topping hits. She nods. Yes, she says. And then she adds something unexpected. She talks about ownership. About narrative power. About deciding when to stay silent and when not to. It doesn't sound like a clapback. It sounds like a warning disguised as wisdom. The band members glance at each other. The producers off camera exchange looks. Social media managers are already clipping the moment, sensing electricity. Jimmy leans back, exhaling through a grin. You're saying I shouldn't make those jokes? He asks, tone playful. She meets his eyes. There's no smile now. I'm saying, she replies gently, that sometimes jokes say more about the storyteller than the subject. The audience gasps. It's not loud, but it's sharp, like glass cracking. Jimmy laughs, because that's what hosts do. He lifts his hands in surrender, playing along. The crowd follows his lead, tension dissolving into applause. But something irreversible has happened. The power dynamic has shifted. This isn't a defensive artist swatting away a tease. This is a master strategist redirecting a narrative in real time, on national television. And she knows exactly what she's doing. Because here's what most people miss. Every late-night appearance is negotiated. Every segment mapped out. Talking points exchanged in advance. Nothing truly spontaneous. So why let that question happen? Why allow the setup? Unless she wanted it. The thought lingers in the air like perfume. Jimmy transitions to a safer topic. Her latest project, her re-recordings, her global dominance. The audience regains its rhythm. Laughter returns. Applause swells. But beneath the surface, the energy is different. Charged. Taylor relaxes back into the couch, crossing her legs elegantly. She's smiling again. Warm. Radiant. But her eyes remain sharp. There's a flicker there. A message delivered. A boundary drawn. And the internet is already reacting. Phones are lighting up in the darkened studio. Tweets are forming mid-broadcast. Clips are being shared before the segment even ends. Fans are dissecting every syllable. Was it subtle shade? Was it empowerment? Was it calculated? Jimmy closes the segment with a compliment, thanking her for coming. They hug lightly, polite, professional. But as she turns toward the audience for one final wave, the camera catches it. That half-second glance back at him. Not angry. Not triumphant. Strategic. Like a general surveying a battlefield after repositioning her troops. The applause fades into commercial break. But backstage, the air is thick. Producers whisper. Publicists check phones. Jimmy walks off stage still smiling, but quieter now. Thoughtful. Taylor disappears behind the curtain, her team closing in around her like a protective wall. And somewhere between the stage lights dimming and the commercial graphics rolling, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. That wasn't a reaction. It was a move. A deliberate, precise maneuver in a much larger game. And the real question isn't what she said. It's why she chose that moment to say it. Because hours earlier, long before she stepped onto that stage, something happened behind closed doors. A conversation. A decision. A line that would not be crossed again. And when part 2 begins, we step into the hallway where the real confrontation started. Backstage doesn't feel glamorous. It feels surgical. The hallway behind the set of Jimmy Kimmel Live is colder than the stage, fluorescent lights humming above polished concrete floors. The applause from the studio audience fades into a muffled echo as doors swing shut, sealing off the laughter like it never existed. But this is where the real temperature rises. Hours before the cameras rolled, Taylor Swift stood near a dressing room mirror framed with warm bulbs, her reflection steady, unreadable. Stylists hovered. Publicists whispered. Phones buzzed with notifications from fan accounts tracking every movement in Los Angeles. On a nearby table lay the rundown. Segment order. Planned jokes. Approved topics. And one line circled. A joke referencing her dating history. Framed as light. Playful. All in good fun. Her publicist had flagged it immediately. They always do this, someone muttered. Taylor didn't respond at first. She traced the edge of the paper with her fingertip, as if feeling the weight of it. Her expression wasn't anger. It was recognition. This wasn't new. For years, punchlines had followed her like a shadow. Award shows, interviews, headlines. Even past appearances on this very stage with Jimmy Kimmel had flirted with that same territory. Romance repackaged as comedy. But tonight felt different. Her tour had shattered records. Her re-recordings had rewritten industry power structures. She wasn't just a guest anymore. She was leverage. Do you want us to pull it? Her publicist asked quietly. A simple phone call could make the line disappear. A boundary could be enforced before the lights ever came on. Taylor's gaze lifted to her reflection. No, she said calmly. The room stilled. Leave it. Her team exchanged glances. Confusion. Concern. You're sure? She nodded once. Yes. And in that single syllable, a strategy began to take shape. Because pulling the joke would have been easy. Confronting it live? That was power. Back in the present, after the on-air moment that shifted the air inside the studio, Jimmy slips into his dressing room, still smiling, but it's thinner now. A producer follows him in, closing the door softly. That got serious, the producer says carefully. Jimmy exhales, running a hand through his hair. She was ready for that. Not surprised. Ready. On the other side of the corridor, Taylor's dressing room is quiet. No celebration. No high fives. Just controlled silence. Her publicist refreshes social feeds, eyes widening as clips begin to explode across platforms. Fan accounts are already dissecting the moment. She ended him. That was classy. Queen behavior. Finally someone said it. Taylor sits on the couch, shoes off now, posture relaxed, but her mind is clearly racing. She replays the exchange, not with regret, but with precision. Did the pause land? Did the wording cut clean without sounding bitter? Did the message reach beyond the room? Her phone lights up. A text from someone close. Just 2 words. Checkmate. She doesn't smile. Not yet, because the real confrontation isn't online. It's about to happen in the hallway. A soft knock at her door. Her team looks up. Another knock. Firmer. Jimmy stands outside. No cameras. No applause. Just fluorescent light and the faint echo of studio crew dismantling cables. Her publicist hesitates. Do you want? It's fine, Taylor says evenly. The door opens. Jimmy steps in, hands loosely in his pockets, posture casual. But there's an undercurrent beneath it. Something unsettled. Hey, he says, voice lighter than his eyes. Hey, she replies. Silence stretches. It's different now. Without an audience, there's no laugh track to cushion the air. Jimmy tilts his head. You blindsided me a little out there. Her gaze doesn't waver. I didn't, she says softly. The joke was on the card. A beat. He gives a half smile. It's what we do. And it's what I've lived with, she answers. No hostility. Just fact. The words hang between them. Jimmy shifts his weight. You know I respect you, right? We've always had fun. She nods. I know. Another pause. But respect evolves, she continues. And so do I. It lands heavier than anything she said on stage. He studies her now, not as a guest, not as a headline, but as a force recalibrating the rules. You could have told us to cut it, he says quietly. She steps closer, not confrontational, just present. I wanted the audience to hear why it matters. That's when it clicks for him. This wasn't emotional. It was instructional. She didn't just respond to a joke. She reframed the entire mechanism behind it. Jimmy lets out a breath that sounds almost like a laugh. You always were good with timing. She offers the faintest smile. Timing is everything. Down the hallway, a production assistant pretends to check her phone, clearly listening. Word spreads fast in places like this. Staff whisper. The tension becomes folklore in real time. Inside the room, the power dynamic shifts again, quieter now, more human. I didn't mean to disrespect you, Jimmy says. I know, Taylor replies. And that might be the most disarming part. There's no accusation. No raised voice. Just clarity. But intention isn't impact, she adds gently. The sentence lands like a thesis statement. He nods slowly, absorbing it. For the first time, there's no witty comeback waiting in his throat. No punchline to deflect the weight of it. Just silence. And in that silence, something unspoken passes between them. An acknowledgement that the industry is changing. That she is no longer a punchline but a power center. That jokes once considered harmless now echoed differently in a world watching more closely. Jimmy straightens slightly. Well, he says after a moment, it made great television. There's honesty in it. And maybe a hint of admiration. Taylor's expression softens. That wasn't the goal. Then what was? She holds his gaze. To make it the last time. The words are quiet, but they reverberate. Jimmy studies her face, searching for anger. There isn't any. Only certainty. A producer knocks gently on the open door. We're wrapped. Jimmy nods, glancing back at Taylor one more time. You always did know how to turn a moment into a movement, he says. She doesn't answer. Because she doesn't need to. He leaves the room, footsteps fading down the corridor. Her team exhales collectively once the door shuts. That was intense, someone whispers. Taylor finally allows herself a small, controlled smile. Not intense, she corrects. Intentional. Her phone buzzes again, notifications multiplying. Clips of the exchange are climbing trending charts. Commentary is erupting. Think pieces are already drafting themselves. But the night isn't over. Because what no one realizes, not the audience, not even Jimmy, is that another layer of this strategy is about to unfold. A post. Timed. Pre-written. waiting in her drafts. As her team gathers around, she opens her phone, thumb hovering over the screen. The caption is short, measured, seemingly harmless, but it will tilt the conversation even further. She looks up at her team. "Ready?" she asks. They nod. Her thumb lowers toward the screen. And just before she presses send, her phone rings. The caller ID makes her expression change for the first time that night. Not anger, not triumph, concern. Because the unseen strategy? It's bigger than a late-night joke. And the voice on the other end is about to complicate everything. Her phone vibrates again. The room goes still. The caller ID glows against the dim light of the dressing room. One of the most powerful names in broadcast television. A senior network executive. Not a text. Not a message passed through a publicist. A direct call. Taylor doesn't hesitate. She answers. "Hi," she says, voice composed. On the other end, the tone is polite but tight. Controlled. Congratulatory at first. "Great segment. Electric television." Electric. That word again. Taylor listens without interrupting. Around her, her team pretends not to listen, but every breath in the room is synchronized with the cadence of that voice leaking faintly through the speaker. Then the shift. "You caught Jimmy off guard," the executive continues. "There's already chatter. We just want to make sure this doesn't escalate." Escalate. As if the escalation hadn't begun years ago. Taylor's eyes lift slowly to meet her own reflection in the mirror across the room. "I answered a question," she says calmly. "Yes," the executive replies, "but perception is everything. We like our relationships smooth." Relationships. The currency of Hollywood. Taylor leans back slightly, crossing one leg over the other. "Respect is smooth," she says. Silence isn't. A pause stretches across the line. In the hallway, somewhere far beyond the door, crew members laugh at something unrelated. It sounds distant, irrelevant. The executive exhales. No one wants a narrative that this was confrontational. Taylor's lips curve faintly. "Narratives write themselves," she says. "Unless someone edits them." Another pause. This one heavier. Because that's the real tension here. Not between her and Jimmy Kimmel, but between an artist who has learned to control her story and a system that once profited from shaping it. "Just be careful what you post tonight," the executive adds carefully. There it is. The real reason for the call. They know she's not finished. Taylor's gaze drifts to her phone screen. The drafted post still waiting. Calm. Concise. Devastatingly subtle. "Thank you for checking in," she says smoothly. "Have a good night." She ends the call. No drama. No visible irritation. Just resolve. Her publicist steps closer. "They're nervous." "They should be," Taylor replies softly. Not as a threat. As fact. Across the building, Jimmy stands alone in his dressing room. Jacket off now, tie loosened. The monitor on the wall replays the segment on mute. He watches himself laugh. Watches her hold eye contact. Watches the audience shift in their seats. He rewinds to the moment she said it. Sometimes jokes say more about the storyteller than the subject. Even without sound, he can feel the impact of it. A knock at his door. A producer steps in. Clips are exploding online. Jimmy nods slowly. Good exploding or bad exploding? The producer hesitates. Both. Jimmy gives a half smile. That's usually the interesting kind. Back in Taylor's dressing room, the tension has transformed. It's sharper now. Focused. Her team gathers around her as she unlocks her phone. The drafted message fills the screen. Short. Measured. No names mentioned. Just a reflection. Growth means outgrowing old punchlines. Her thumb hovers above post. One tap, and the internet fractures. She looks up. "This isn't about tonight," she says quietly. "It's about next time." For every woman who walks into a room like that, no one argues. She presses send. The screen refreshes. And within seconds, the numbers begin to climb. Retweets. Comments. Shares. Fan accounts dissect the phrasing. Media outlets scramble to embed screenshots before she even leaves the building. In the control room, producers watch social feeds spike in real time. One of them mutters, "She planned this." Because she did. Not the joke. Not the tension. But the response. This wasn't a spontaneous clapback. It was narrative architecture. Across Los Angeles, phones buzz on nightstands. Entertainment reporters sit up in bed. Editors text headlines back and forth. Swift shuts down Kimmel. Taylor reclaims the narrative. Late night lines crossed? But something else is happening too. Clips of Jimmy's reaction, his shifting posture, his brief hesitation, are circulating. Slow motion replays, lip read analyses, body language breakdowns. The internet has turned into a courtroom. And everyone has an opinion. Jimmy's phone buzzes on the counter. He glances down. A text from a fellow host. Rough night? Another from a comedian friend. She got you good. He doesn't respond immediately. Instead, he rewinds the segment one more time. This time, he watches her. Not the audience. Not himself. Her. The calm. The control. The absence of anger. He exhales slowly. She didn't attack, he murmurs to himself. She elevated. And that's what stings. Not humiliation. Recalibration. Back at the studio exit, Taylor steps into the cool night air. The flash of cameras hits instantly. Paparazzi shouting questions. Taylor, was that scripted? Are you feuding with Jimmy? Is this about past jokes? She doesn't stop. But she doesn't rush either. She pauses just long enough to offer a composed smile. No feud, she says evenly. Just evolution. 3 words. Another headline. Her car door closes softly behind her, shutting out the chaos. Inside, the city lights streak across the tinted windows like falling stars. Her phone continues to vibrate nonstop. Her post is trending worldwide. Hashtags multiplying. Debates raging. Support flooding in from unexpected corners of the industry. And then, a new notification. Jimmy. A direct message. She stares at the name for a moment before opening it. Simple. Respectful. Point taken. She reads it twice. No defensiveness. No sarcasm. Just acknowledgement. A small smile finally touches her lips. Because that was the real objective. Not embarrassment. Not domination. Awareness. Back at the studio, Jimmy walks onto the now empty stage, hands in his pockets. The skyline backdrop glows artificially behind him. The chairs sit exactly where they were during the segment. He stands where she stood. He looks out at the vacant seats. And for the first time tonight, there's no audience to guide the reaction. Just reflection. The game changed tonight. Not loudly, but permanently. Because the unseen strategy wasn't about winning a moment. It was about shifting the rules of engagement. And as Taylor's car disappears into the Los Angeles night, her post climbing into the millions, one question begins echoing across the industry. Who controls the narrative now? The answer isn't trending yet, but it's coming. And when morning hits, the fallout won't just belong to one show or one joke. It will belong to an industry forced to look at itself under brighter lights than ever before.